Welcome to the 2021 EUROCAE Symposium. So happy that we are here today. So happy that I can welcome you here today to our symposium. We had to miss our last year's symposium. We all know why. We had the pandemic, already the first wave, when we were in the middle of the preparation of last year's symposium. Nevertheless, we managed to switch over. And this year we have a full virtual symposium with hopefully a lot of attendance. But what I know already today is that we have a very, very good program. And this program will lead us through the world of aviation the next 3 days. Let me speak a little bit on what happened the last 2 years, because it was 2019, 2 years ago, when we had our last symposium and I was able to address you in this format. The time has changed, the priorities have changed, the challenges have changed a little bit, and I'm pretty sure that Henrik will address that in more detail and will give us a bit of a positive wave on how we proceed. But what we did is at EUROCAE to take exactly this time and don't miss the opportunity, because every challenge has an opportunity. And we wanted to take this opportunity and go ahead with things we always put on hold because of resources. I know that was difficult, and let me take this opportunity to thank the team at EUROCAE, our governing structure, but mainly our members and the experts serving at the working groups in order to go ahead with the standardization activities to get things done. Did it work? I think it worked pretty well. And over the weekend, it was the 13th of March 2020, when we had to switch over from a regular way of doing business in EUROCAE into a fully virtual life, in a fully virtual way of developing standards. And thanks to our TPMs, thanks to our leadership team in the working groups, thanks to our members and the experts also switching over overnight, we were able to continue with our activities. It worked. 71% of our activities are on track, exactly on time. 25% are slightly delayed, and only 4% are a little bit out of range. This is not unusual to any other year, any previous year we had. So we are pretty much keeping an eye on that with the KPIs we have in place, and it worked well. We also have seen that EUROCAE went through different changes over the last years. It was not only that the structure had to be changed, not only the platform we are using had to be changed, not only the way of business we are doing had to be changed. It also was a way that we were growing and the demand was growing, because the aviation had so many challenges in the past. We had also newcomers in aviation. We have new challenges, we have new targets, we have new priorities. Just to give you an idea, 2013, from 2012 to today, we tripled our membership. We tripled our membership in only 9 years. We have built our IT infrastructure for around 1,000 experts to serve. Now we have more than 3,500 experts working on different activities. That's a change. We try to stay agile and flexible on that, keeping in mind safety highest priority, and the quality of our standard is the second highest priority we are having in aviation. We are having as a standard developing organization. This in addition that we had 2019, 5 new working groups. Into 2020, 7 new working groups, which in average, normally we had only 2. This is much more. And also we see that on the performance, we are developing now and publishing around 30 standards per year. The long-term average was about 10 standards per year. We have a total number of 48 active working groups. 2010, we had only 26. So I don't want to waste more time on that because we have Henrik here and I want to have a chat after his speech with him and address a couple of points in more detail. But these 3 days, I really want to listen to the presentations, to listen to the discussion, which gives us the inspiration of what we have to do. But the conclusions leading to action will create the changes we are aiming for. With this, I'm very happy to introduce Henrik Caldeley, who does not need an introduction, but Henrik thankfully accepted my invitation. We know each other since 10-ish years or so. I know he has a passion for aviation. He has a hidden talent in flying aircraft. And Henrik, with this, I hand over to you.
Christian, thank you. Thank you very much for your kind introduction and for inviting me to open the EUROCAE's annual symposium. It is a great pleasure and honor for me to address this wide audience of industry leaders and regulators. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we heard and as we can see, and unfortunately we can only greet each other virtually, but well, looking at the positive side, it's also a way to pay tribute to the achievements of an industry and as producers of standards that make it possible for millions of people to meet remotely in these different and difficult times. However, I think all of us, and me as included, would have so much more preferred to be with you in person, to address you in person, but there we are. Perhaps as a symbol of challenges we have faced throughout the last 14 months. I think we all would like to see this to end, turn a new page, and hope sincerely and wholeheartedly that the new normal would not be that different from what we know as old normal. However, with the crisis, there is also a silver lining, and we are now richer from an experience no other generation has had in a century. Are we happy about that? Probably not, but let us nevertheless build on that experience and act where we can do more, analyze what worked, what didn't, and focus on how we can change the world around us for being better and more resilient. Against this background, we must also note that in aviation, there are important changes in the making. All of the aviation events to which I'm invited these days have a common thread. Everybody wants to speak about vision, strategies, priorities, change. This is encouraging because it means that there is a widespread common awareness that the change is needed in air transport, and most importantly, that there is a clear willingness to evolve the way today's air transport is operating. We need to be more efficient, more sustainable, smarter in our actions, and through deploying new innovations and new technologies. The COVID pandemic has undoubtedly contributed to emphasizing this need for change. However, let's also be honest, the change as such was already happening. COVID is a startling and dramatic wake-up call for all of us to review our priorities and to make change happen more rapidly through a global effort and a more global consciousness. But let's be careful. COVID is an accelerator, as our future challenges would not be linked to COVID, but many other issues and new challenges that have been in the making or are already there. So we need to look beyond and be prepared now. When we launched the Single European Sky, and that's a long time ago, our main objective was to develop a highly performing European ATM system that would allow for higher capacity and safety while reducing costs and environmental impact. However, initially, our focus was on increasing systems' ability to manage a larger volume of traffic. Today, our focus has shifted towards making air transport more sustainable. We also realize that we do not need immense available capacity all the time, but rather a scalable capacity to manage more effectively the actual traffic demand. We also realize that we need to take into account new categories of airspace users and extend the management of operations beyond the current limits of airspace. Addressing these priorities requires a strong investment in innovation and exploiting a huge potential of automation and highly connected systems enabled by extensive digitalization of ATM systems. This is what we do through CESAR joint undertaking that is now preparing for the CESAR-free era. We also have to explore the path of decarbonizing the fuels used in conventional aircraft and developing clean aircrafts. In these fields, the Commission is preparing initiatives focused on the use of sustainable renewable fuels. In aviation, it's the Refuel EU Aviation proposal, and on the new joint undertaking for clean aviation. However, ATM is a prime enabler for a cleaner, more efficient, and more resilient aviation. This is why it will have to adapt to today's new normal, and more importantly, it will have to be able to adapt to any future new normal. We are well aware that air transport is sensitive to natural and man-made crises, such as COVID, the 9/11 attacks, and the famous Eyjafjallajökull volcano eruption. Yet, aviation remains by far the safest form of transportation in the world. This is largely because it's built on standards that ensure and maintain a high level of safety and improve the efficiency and quality of the management of today's air traffic. Therefore, our ambition to achieve European ATM that is highly digitalized, resilient, environmentally performant and efficient, and scalable, that is able to integrate safely a wide variety of new aerial vehicles alongside conventional manned aircraft. This objective is fully in line with the Commission vision for change, which we call the European Green Deal. But we also call it, in the area of transport and mobility, strategy for smart and sustainable mobility. We also have there the Single European Sky and the Digital European Sky, which actually I would say is it's a digital advancement of the Single European Sky. The European Green Deal aims to create the world's first climate-neutral bloc by 2050. It places the decarbonization and digitalization of transport also at the very heart of Union's aviation policy. As part of the European Green Deal, the smart and sustainable mobility strategy that we presented last year is a major deliverable by the Commission. It sets out the roadmap for putting European transport firmly on the right track for the future. The strategy is structured around 3 key objectives, making the European transport system sustainable, smart, and resilient. But also, if we want to achieve that, first we have to have a highly performant single market. In aviation, that means 2 things. We need to maintain our very successful single European transport area, and we really need to deliver on the Single European Sky. To achieve the sustainable transition, we need to make all transport modes really more sustainable, make sustainable alternatives widely available in a multimodal transport system, and put in place the right incentives to drive the transition. Through the Single European Sky and the CESAR project, we have established a framework that has allowed us to engage in a common effort to modernize the ATM in Europe. However, to achieve our vision, this framework needs to evolve. The European Commission has launched 3 important initiatives to reform European ATM that will lay the ground for highly digital, resilient, and environmentally efficient ATM systems. First, as you well know, we revived the CES2 proposal with the aim to strengthen the European network and its management, promote a European market for data services, streamline the economic regulation of air traffic services, and improve coordination within the CESAR project. We have also proposed the establishment of the CESAR-3 research and partnership to continue the excellent work of the current joint undertaking in developing key ATM solutions that constitute the building blocks of the digital European sky. These CESAR solutions have great potential to facilitate the digital transformation of the ATM and to eliminate fuel efficiencies, reducing average CO2 emissions per flight. But in order to do that, they must be deployed fast and standardized. We have renewed deployment framework through which we have established the Common Project 1, a big achievement last year, and through which we will soon renew governance mechanisms building on the invaluable experience gained over the past 6 years with the CESAR deployment manager to ensure the faster synchronized deployment of key ATM functionalities. And we are also reinforcing and refocusing our cooperation with the USA under the Memorandum of Cooperation on ATM Modernization and Global Interoperability. The US renewed interest for environment and cooperation fosters the alignment with Union's priorities and will be beneficial for a closer cooperation and coordination in ICAO. For me, the international dimension and strong partnership with our key global partners is also essential and also part of the success. In most cases, innovative solutions will require high-quality standards to ensure safety, protection from cybersecurity threats, harmonized implementation, and interoperability of the systems deployed in Europe and globally. This is why standardization plays a crucial role in the overall ATM modernization framework, and EUROCAE is contributing enormously to facilitate the development of standards that are fit for purpose. I also noted that in the video that you played in the beginning, fit for purpose, exactly. However, EUROCAE cannot be alone in this endeavor. Standards are developed in partnership with the industry that must be committed to playing a proactive part in the standard-making process. On our side, the Commission fully supports and encourages increased efforts from all CESAR partners in close cooperation with standardization bodies and EASA to achieve the highest level of maturity for CESAR solutions that are developed by the joint undertaking. This is a fundamental prerequisite for accelerating standardization activities and faster implementation of the digital European sky. For example, in our proposal for the CESAR-3, EUROCAE will have a permanent observer status on the governing board as an indicator of high appreciation to its work. The only thing I regret is that we didn't do that earlier, but better late than never. In addition, members taking part in standardization activities will see their activities recognized as in-kind contributions to the joint undertaking. We will also analyze the links between ongoing industrial research activities and the relevant standardization working groups, where by creating feedback loops, we will ensure a speedier and more efficient standardization phase for CESAR solutions. EASA will also play in the future a stronger role in this context, which I'm very happy about. In fact, the agency is chairing the standardization coordination groups that are monitoring gaps and needs in the development of standards in the future ATM functionalities. In addition, it will support the Commission in assessing ATM functionalities' technical readiness for deployment. The Commission will also continue to provide financial support to ATM standardization as far as our funding programs will allow. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, to conclude, I would like to reiterate the importance of accelerating the development of ATM standards for achieving the digitalization and decarbonization objectives of our Green Deal and our vision for a modern, harmonized, performant digital European sky. This objective requires full engagement of the industry. EUROCAE and its members can provide a substantial contribution to modernizing and digitalizing ATM in Europe and globally. Thank you for your support. I can only encourage you to continue your excellent work. I would like to pay special tribute to Christian for his leadership, partnership, and excellent cooperation. Thank you, Christian. I also like to thank very much all of you for your kind attention. It's been a pleasure to having this opportunity to open your symposium, and I wish you a successful, interesting, thought-provoking symposium. Stay well, in good health, and in good spirits.
Thank you very much, Henrik. Thanks for the inspiring words, and thanks for pushing us in the right direction. I think you are right with a couple of statements you made. But let me just ask you one question. I know we are running out of time, but you mentioned a couple of things which we had before the crisis, which we had during the crisis, and we eventually have after the crisis. You spoke about digitalization, you spoke about capacity, you spoke about safety, you spoke about new airspace users, you spoke about decarbonization. What would you regret mostly when you see now, you know, we have this downtime a little bit? I mean, we all know when you're flying now, how lonely you feel in the air currently, but what would you regret mostly? What we haven't done during this time where we had a little bit more, I don't say resources, because we know already we have shortcomings here, which comes with this crisis. But is there a point which you would say, come on, let's do that now and don't miss the opportunity?
I regret, thank you very much, Christian. You know what I regret most? I regret most that people are not flying, that I cannot fly, or I haven't been able to fly since February last year. I've been more or less grounded, and that feels very bad, I can tell you. But I hope that things will change soon. But more seriously, you know, almost all the aviation, the stakeholders coming from the aviation value network, almost all of them are in a very difficult situation where their focus is very much on short term. For some, it's about survival. For others, it's about sort of trying to make sure that there will be a good start when it comes. But for no one, it has been easy. And that means, of course, that in this time, the focus has very much been on short-term priorities and short-term goals, which is fully understandable. At the same time, it is very important to concentrate on the medium and longer-term goals. Aviation, simply coming out of this crisis and restarting, has to become more sustainable, because the societal expectations have changed, the political expectations have changed. There will be no license to grow for aviation if it doesn't focus on getting itself far more sustainable than it is today. And I think this is one of the key things. It's important to get that. I think it would have been also important during this time to very clearly and very strongly come out with this commitment. And we don't have a silver bullet. There are a number of things that we need to do in parallel. And that also means that we need to use every opportunity. And that comes my last point, which I regret most. I regret the fact that this message hasn't come across. And we are talking now about the single European sky. The discussions which have been going on in the Council between the member states have not been encouraging, nor have they shown the understanding that by delivering single European sky, you can actually be able to make aviation more than 10% more sustainable, get 10% of the emissions down if the flights would be direct, if the flights would be efficient, and if there will be no circumvention. But this sense of urgency has not been internalized. And the discussions have actually given us something where the lowest common denominator is the driving force. And this doesn't get us anywhere. And that will put the burden on the airlines and on anybody else to do much more than they would perhaps be able to do in the short term, because we are not delivering the possible savings and reduction of the CO2 where we can actually achieve it if the will is there. And also it's difficult to understand how come we have on the ground, we have a single market that is functioning, and in the air where you don't have anything else but imaginary borders, the same single market doesn't exist, or at least the same single European sky. I regret most that this understanding during the crisis and the issues related to sustainability have not been observed in a way I was expecting, but I have a lot of hopes on the European Parliament, who has definitely got the message, and it will be interesting to see how these discussions between the Council and the Parliament will continue once we will get there. And I really hope that we can be able to deliver on the single European sky, which we haven't over the past decades.
Henrik, thank you so much. I think you have turned the symposium already in a direction. Now we have to start moving, and we will do that with your inspiring words. Thanks for joining us this afternoon, and thanks for talking to us. Thanks for your inspiration, but also a little bit of yes, let's do that, and let's go ahead and move on. We are taking good notes of your comments. Thank you very much for joining us. And you know, there is always a plan B for flying, so just give me a call. Thanks, Henrik. With this, I'll let you go. Thank you very much. I want to introduce now Bruno Herreyl, Council Chair and President of EUROCAE. Bruno Herreyl is, in his day life, he works for Thales, but since many, many years, he is acting at the EUROCAE Council in several positions. Very happy to have him here. I'm working since my first day with him, so really happy. Bruno, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you very much. So I will be quite short, really. Thank you again to Henrik Caldeley for his very inspiring and very welcoming words he said. And really the purpose of my speech today is to welcome all the participants to this symposium. Okay, that's as president of EUROCAE, really it's my role, and it's a pleasure for me to welcome all of you here at this annual symposium. Of course, this year it's organized in a period where the context remains extremely difficult due to pandemic and the consequences on the activities, and mainly on aviation, as we already mentioned. Last year, Christian mentioned also, we had to cancel the symposium. Okay, this year, hopefully we can run the symposium, but it's in a very, very particular way and completely virtual, which is very different with what we used to do in the past. And so, of course, this is due to the need we have to maintain, to ensure a safe participation and make sure that we can share information, taking into account all the sanitary constraints we have around the world. The crisis, as was mentioned, and it will continue to have a deep impact on the aviation business. It changes the priorities, and it changes what was previously defined, puts new priorities forward. And of course, that leads us to reconsider the business in a certain way and try to understand what are these new challenges. Okay, as Henrik mentioned, really, we had in the past this great focus on the ATM capacity and the possibility to increase the traffic while reducing delays. These days, it's no longer such an issue, and maybe that's not the issue we have to address. And as was mentioned, the real need now is a better resilience, scalability, and flexibility, so that we can adjust not only when it goes up, but also when it goes down. And Henrik mentioned that already very clearly. Of course, we still have some priorities as well already in place before, like all the these challenges around the environmental footprint and the reduction of this footprint of aviation, and the expectation for greener solution for traveling. Okay, this is even highly expressed in a higher way than it was before, and that was this Green Deal we talk about, and this is something that is now on the table and that has to be tackled quite urgently. Same with the introduction of drones in the airspace, okay, which is increasing in terms of different varieties and types and usage of drones, and this we have to take into account also when considering the evolution of the system for aviation. As Henrik mentioned also, that will lead to some changes in the European landscape, okay, in terms of the, I would say, institutional actors and their roles and responsibilities, the EASA, Eurocontrol, and so on, the new research and deployment programs that were mentioned, Clean Aviation and Cesar-Free, which are being launched these days, and that will shape the future of the aviation in Europe. And as was mentioned also by Henrik, it's not only Europe, and that's worldwide that this has relevance and raise interest for all the aviation domain. Of course, this is supported by new technologies, artificial intelligence, virtualization, cloud computing, all that creates many opportunities to provide adequate answers. Yet, they need to be properly understood, mastered, and adapted to the domain where they have to be applied. In the aviation domain, we know that we are and we will remain strongly linked to safety and driven by safety, because that's what we need to have in place when we have large numbers of people traveling at high altitude in airplanes. Of course, this will require appropriate regulation and appropriate standards to support this regulation. And EUROCAE, as was mentioned by Christian, has embraced these new challenges and priority and has significantly enlarged the scope of expertise during the past years to properly address these arising topics. Let's just highlight the recent working groups created on artificial intelligence, virtual center, UAS, counter-UAS, hybrid electric propulsion, or VTOL. There are many new topics, many new domains of expertise that are covered by EUROCAE. Having this in mind, the EUROCAE team, and special thanks to EUROCAE Secretariat for this, has prepared a substantial program for the symposium that intends to address these new concerns, priorities, and challenges. The different panels proposed during these 3 days will highlight some essential characteristics of the forthcoming digitalization of aviation and outline its expected impacts, and in particular with regards to standardization. So let me hope you will enjoy this symposium that I wish fruitful and inspiring to you. Thank you very much and have a nice symposium. The floor is back to you, Christian. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bruno. Thanks for your words, and again, thanks on behalf of all of our members. Indeed, this is we are a membership-driven organization, and Bruno perfectly reflected that in which way we are doing that. So very fine with that. Thanks again. Also, a big thank you to our sponsors. This symposium would not be able without our sponsors. You know, this is for free. This we try to have as much as possible here for the community. So we are relying on our sponsors. Special thanks to Thales and Frequentis as a silver sponsor, but also a thank to our bronze sponsors, Skyguide, Indra, Honeywell, Collins, and Inmarsat. So thanks again for that.